So, part 2 was released a while ago and hoyoverse hit us with a ton of lore, all at once. And let me tell you, people are confused. I know this because, with a few exceptions, every time I saw any type of discussion regarding the lore of part 2 on social media, I felt like I was reading a fan fiction. And that is why I spent the last few weeks preparing the oven so that I can cook this video and hopefully offer a clearer image about what the is going on. Trust me, after organizing all of this information, it's not as complicated as it seems. I think the reason it felt that way was because the lore was thrown at us quickly. Plus there's the technical jargon and the classic Honkai Impact 3rd English localization, which doesn't help with the flow of text. Anyway, who let the dog out? A long time ago, Mars, also known as Luoxing, was a prosperous planet with a thriving civilization. Mars had 4 major continents: Phoenix in the south, Lunae in the east, Elysium in the west, and Arcadia in the north. Oxia and Langqui were part of Lunae. The oldest civilization on Luoxing originated from the Phoenix continent and spread across the entire planet. So, even though Oxia is technically part of Lunae, some texts may refer to its people as the inheritors of the Phoenix continent. About 100 Mars years ago, I said Mars years because 1 year on Mars is much longer than 1 year on Earth, so 100 Mars years are approximately 200 Earth years. Anyway, a catastrophe known as the Great Eruption unleashed a force of dark energy which exposed Mars to the Sea of Data. This led to widespread destruction, with many cities being corrupted by the sea. Coincidentally, we know that the Cocoon of Finality stalled on Mars 1 billion Earth years ago, and in one of Chenxe's notes it is stated that the Great Eruption was caused by Honkai energy. Now, does this mean that the Great Eruption was caused by the Cocoon? We don't know. Hylia and Coralie questioned the connection between the two due to how different the Great Eruption on Mars was from the one on Earth. Concepts such as Honkai Corruption, Honkai Beasts, or even Hershers were completely absent. In my opinion, more so than the Great Eruption, the Cocoon was responsible for the Curse of the Shadows, which again both Hylia and Coralie heavily associate with the Honkai phenomena on Earth. This might suggest that the Cocoon employed a different method in the past to achieve embrace, and Hershers, as we know them, might be a more recent strategy. Besides the fact that we don't know the role that the Cocoon played in Mars's destruction, there is also a discrepancy in the timeline of the events between when the Cocoon was on Mars and what the people of Luoxing remember about the Great Eruption. The Great Eruption happened 100 Mars years ago, while the Cocoon was said to be on Mars 1 billion Earth years ago. So, what's happening here? We know from the Cocoon of Unwoven that time in the bubble worlds of Mars halted until Kiana achieved embrace with the Cocoon on Earth, which could explain the discrepancy in the two timelines. While in the proper world it has been over 1 billion years since the destruction of Mars, for the people of Mars, due to time being frozen, it was just a little more than 100 years. This would paint a timeline of events like this. Finality was on Mars 1 billion years ago and tried to achieve embrace through the Curse of Shadows. The Great Eruption happened, Finality left, after 100 years the time on Mars froze, and after Kiana achieved embrace, time on Mars resumed. Or another version, which seems a little bit more likely, would be that the Cocoon remained on Mars for 100 more years after the Great Eruption, and time was frozen only after it left. But this timeline brings up new questions. We know that Zenadina interacted with the Cocoon. So, did she use Finality's power to freeze time on Mars until a civilization could control the Cocoon's powers by achieving embrace? Her immediate request for Kiana's help might suggest that embrace might have been a crucial factor for Mars's salvation, but that's a theory for another video. Continuing with finality and Honkai, let's delve into the shadows. The Curse of Shadows is a phenomena present on Mars even before the Great Eruption. Throughout the story, there are some obvious parallels between shadows and the Honkai phenomena on Earth, suggesting that they both might be the cocoon's attempt at embrace. What makes the Curse of Shadows distinct is its tie to fear, which can make it manifest in multiple ways. From monsters to diseases to even beings capable of wielding unique powers. In the beginning of chapter 1, Coralie calls the monsters from the shadow Martian Honkai beasts. Later on, Coralie and Hylia even mention that shadows might give birth to Herschers. Of course, not literal Herschers as we know them on Earth, but beings similar in nature to Herschers, which was later reinforced by the reveal that Duonigue, a creature of the shadows, was born from Litost's fear. Duonigue, by being a creature that can bring death to those who fear it, has some interesting parallels to the Herrscher of Death. But we'll get back to Litost and Duonigue later. Another interesting thing about the shadows is that they can take any shape. Through a process known as fear gathering, the people of Langqi can exchange their fears with the shadows for goods that they need to survive. This process is realized through a special gadget made by Ajita, one of the 7 Shus. The Dreamseeker even draws parallels between shadows and the source matter used by the people in Oxia. Source matter is a substance from the sea of data that can be transformed into tangible materials through special programming. Later in the story, the source matter and the shadows were confirmed to be similar after they were able to use the source matter extractors on them. And similarly how the shadows can give birth to monsters, or even humans like the Litost that we see in chapter 1, source matter can also do the same. In fact, the Dreamseeker themselves is such a human said to be born from source matter. Vita describes the Dreamseeker as a star whisperer, which those of you who have read the Durandal visual novel should be very familiar with. In essence, they are people born inside the Sea of Quanta based on some form of blueprint of data. The manifestation of the shadows on Mars was categorized in 10 different types called the 10 Faces of Misery. Here are some of them. Tainted by dust is the infliction that the Dreamseeker suffers from. It starts with the individual seeing a strange symbol inside their mind. Then they begin to fear everything around them, and as the infliction gets worse, they even fear themselves. This, in turn, will give birth to shadow monsters from their fear. Luckily for the Dreamseeker, Songche was there to keep the issue at bay. The Dream of Loss, which are the domains where we farm not relics, are also one of the 10 Faces of Misery. Another one is Duonigue, but he's pretty harmless now that we beat him and Perception cut his link to the Pool of Shadows. Lastly, the most dangerous of the 10 Faces of Misery is the subscribe button. Make sure that you press it to subscribe and leave a like if you want to be free of the curse of not knowing Honkai lore. Genuinely, don't wait until it's too late. The 10 Faces of Misery were spread everywhere on Mars prior to the Great Eruption, or at least in Antares City, but we can assume it was the same all over the planet. I fail to see why this phenomena would be unique to only a single city. To combat them, people develop unique methods to deal with them by mastering their fear. The people who are able to deal with all 10 Faces of Misery were given the title of Shus. The 7 Shus are a group of people who use 7 different methods related to fear to deal with the shadows. Some of them were even being revered as gods among humans. The 7 Shus remind me of Stigma Awakened, who awakened into a state where they can control the Honkai energy from their body to fight. The 7 Shus each hold a title based on their method of dealing with the shadows. Number 1, the best character ever created by hoyoverse, I mean Thelema, the Shu of Pleasure. Number 2, Litost, the Shu of Sacrifice. Number 3, Seraphim, the Shu of Union. Number 4, Lantern, the Shu of Destruction. Number 5, Baiji, the the shoe of falsehood, number 6, Ajita, the shoe of gadgets, and number 7, Songche, the shoe of deception. Each of the shoes has mind-blowing powers. Selema can take control over people's minds, turning them into loyal followers, and I know this firsthand. Litost had complete control over the fear in people's hearts. Seraphim can combine the souls of the people who walk into her library into a hive mind. Lantern is a very powerful fighter that killed countless monsters from the shadows. Baiji is literally a god who can create anything with the power of the shadows. Ajita split her soul into multiple pieces and put them into her gadgets. And yes, perception is one of them. And there's Songche, she can do something, I guess. Joking aside, I wouldn't sleep on this grandma who can't lift her ass off the ground. When talking about the 7 shoes, Chen Xue mentioned that Songche can deceive even the laws of physics. It's clear that there is more to her than we see, and I guarantee you that by the end of this story arc, we'll find out some crazy plot twists regarding her character. Before the Great Eruption, Oxia and Langqi were part of the 4 quarters of the ancient Antares city, along with Minghai and Bai Yu. When the Great Eruption struck, the people of Antares retreated inside a bubble world protected by the Anchor of Apocalypse. Unfortunately, the corruption of the sea continued even there, and Minghai and Bai Yu were destroyed, leaving Oxia and Langqi to soon follow the same fate. In order to stop the disaster, Litost absorbed all the fear he could gather into himself. Then he died and his body became the pool of shadows. The rest of the shoes used the 7 nails to pin the pool of shadows above Langqi and counteract the corruption of the sea. They placed Langqi between the Sea of Data and Oxia, making sure that the corruption only spread to Langqi, where it's kept in check by the pool of shadows. They also trapped all the shadows here, making Langqi a prison for the course of shadows as well. After they achieved their goal, the 7 shoes went into slumber. Well, most of them. Litost died, but he came back as a shadow born from Duonigue's fear. Songche never fell asleep and instead chose to remain in Langqi to help the people by performing fear gathering, and a part of Ajita's souls remained inside the artifact she left behind. Because of the sacrifice of the 7 shoes, the people of Oxia were able to continue living peacefully. Now, due to the events that happened in Langqi, a great evil is about to be unleashed, and the shoes need to be reawakened to stop it. Now, let's address the dog in the room, Duonigue. To understand the dog, we first need to understand his master, the human he vowed to torture endlessly, Litost. Litost. A long time ago, Litost committed a grave sin. Nobody seems to know what this sin was, not even the other shoes. To repent for his actions, Litost locked himself up, but that wasn't enough for him. Litost wanted to repent by dying and erasing every trace of his existence from the world. You see, Litost was not an ordinary human. He lacked the emotion of fear. And not only that, he was capable of controlling the fear in the hearts of others, including himself. So Litost made himself feel fear and have the monster that will be born from that fear kill him. That's how Duonigue came to be. Unfortunately for Litost, things didn't go as he wished. By nature, Duonigue is a monster that brings death to the people who fear him. But Litost didn't fear death. He didn't fear anything, so it would have been pointless for Duonigue to kill him. On the contrary, Litost wanted to die. So Duonigue decided to torture him for the rest of his life by forming a contract with him and becoming his weapon. Not long after, Litost became the shoe of sacrifice. While working together, Duonigue made sure to leave as many traces as possible so that people will remember Litost, making sure that he will never realize his wish of erasing everything about himself. The two of them had a very strange relationship, to say the least, where they were both partners and enemies at the same time. Later on, they killed everybody on Amber Street in an incident known as the Amber Street Grey Panic. They did this because the street itself was plagued by the 10 faces of misery due to the people's subconscious collective fear of it, and to stop the street from spawning an endless horde of monsters, Litost transferred the source of fear to himself by killing everybody. In the end, Litost sacrificed his life to become the pool of shadows that kept the corruption of the Sea of Data at bay and imprisoned the 10 faces of misery. His sacrifice was the catalyst that enabled the Shus to execute their plan and save Oxia. After spending time with Litost and not being able to break him, Duonigue subconsciously developed a fear of him, which brought back Litost as a manifestation of the shadows. When the Dreamseeker asked Shadow Litost about his identity, he replied that he is not Litost, but for them, he is Litost. His existence was created by Duonigue's fear of Litost, so while he is Litost, he's not the real Litost. Interestingly enough, the real Litost knew all along that he will return as Duonigue's fear, as we saw in his dialogue with Baiji right before his death. So, to recap, Duonigue was born from Litost's self-induced fear, and later, after he died, Litost was brought back to life as a shadow born from Duonigue's fear. I know, it's confusing AF. After Litost died, Duonigue also gained control over the pool of shadows. He wanted to switch the places of Oxia and Langqi, basically having Oxia support Langqi instead and unleash the 10 faces of misery upon the world once again. Now, you may ask, why would he do this? And while the text doesn't explain it in great detail, it basically boils down to the fact that he wanted to maintain balance for Litost's sake. Since Litost was someone who always strived for balance, Duonigue thought that it's unfair that Langqi kept supporting Oxia for 100 years and wanted to reverse the situation to achieve that balance. But didn't he hate Litost? Yesn't. Like I said, they had a very complicated relationship. Fortunately, we stopped him before it was too late, but some sort of disaster was already set in motion anyway, and it doesn't seem to be related to Duonigue, but more so with us. In this last part, I want to talk about some miscellaneous stuff, things that I couldn't fit into a category. First, Senadina and the Dreamseeker. I'm talking about the goddess version here. All we know is that she's a being that interacted with finality and that she's in a different point of time. Yes, this is literally the first thing she says when she met the Dreamseeker. But if that's the case, how did she met the Dreamseeker and even Kiana? Well, through dreams, of course. And if you remember what Vincent told us during Act 2 of Chapter 1, there is a legend about a group of people called Dreamseekers in the Elysium of old, who were people that could travel back in time through dreams. It is said that they used these powers to observe everything in history. This also suggests that all the dreams exist somewhere outside the constraints of time, which is quite a major lore bump. Another point I wanted to address are I Lambda and Vita. For now, they seem to be inside a pseudo-time crystal and observe the story just like us. Their dialogue implies that at some point they plan to intervene directly. So for all the Vita wanters, stay strong my comrades, our time will come soon. So this is pretty much the gist of everything. Please keep in mind that in some places the lore and timeline is very blurry, so I had to use my own interpretation to fill in some gaps. So take what I said in this video with a grain of salt. I tried my best. If you think that I was wrong in some parts or you have some interesting points that I didn't mention, please write them in the comments. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to lobotomize whatever is left of my brain. See you later.